Greetings and salutations, Passionates. I just wanted to jump in real quick. We're going to do housekeeping up front and knock it out, and then we're going to get right into the episode. So this is another guest episode, so it'll be done in two parts so that there's not too much given to you at one time, because I know after a certain amount of time, the information can seem a little bit overwhelming or a little daunting. So I want to divide it up for you. So there's that. Also, in the episode, I was talking about captions on posts when you're posting on Instagram versus when you're posting on TikTok. At the time when this episode was recorded, Instagram was not offering captions. Instagram is now offering captions. Was I going to double back through this video and put that footnote in? No, I wasn't. So I'm telling you now, if you'd like to make a financial donation to support the pod, you can donate through Cash App. You can donate through PayPal. You can donate through Linktree. You can donate through the Podbean page, or you can Zelle me. All the links will be below the episode. All of your feedback is greatly appreciated. Always comment below, like, subscribe, share. If you are listening and you are not watching, whatever is the like or rating mechanism on the platform by which you receive this, it doesn't offend me if you hit like. It doesn't offend me if you hit share. Let other people know what we're doing here. Help me help others help themselves. Okay. I think that's it. If it's not, oh well. I'll see you after the episode. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something. So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion, no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast. Greetings and salutations, my beloved Passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, Passion, no last necessary, your get you right guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or what was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have previously considered to both expand your thinking and for you to become a better version of yourself, for yourself and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I will never rob you of your feelings. You have a right to feel what you feel, but I will not sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so you can be the best version of you. So today we have a guest. Are you excited? I am. This guest reached out to me so that she could ask me some questions about starting a pod. And I decided to make it an episode in line with what we were talking about with consistency, in line with what we've talked about with doing business, with people having different experiences, working by yourself, working with others. So I'm about to bring her into the room. I hope that you enjoy the episode. I know that you'll get some great insight from it. And I look forward to talking to you next week.
How are you?
I am shifting my energy.
Yes.
Yeah. That is how I am feeling. It has already been an adventure of a day. And I think that really goes along with how we got to this episode. You reached out to me in my inbox and you had questions for me. And so I'm going to let you tell the people what your questions were for me. And then I'm going to get them a little background as to today.
Okay. Before we get started, yes. My windows are open. Are you hearing my background noise?
So I don't, but that doesn't really mean anything because I also have on this head wrap. And so my hearing is greatly reduced right now. It's a day. the people upstairs are doing construction. So there is sawing and hammering. I'm thinking that maybe they went on a lunch break. I'm hoping that they'll be on this break long enough. But anything is possible. So, you know what, even before we get started, I did in every episode, I always do affirmations to start the episode off. And I am going to do those affirmations. If you would like to repeat after me, you are welcome to.
Yes, I need it.
Okay, good. So, Passionates, you are always welcome to repeat after me or take this time to state your take a deep breath. I am vital.
I am vital.
I am relevant.
I am relevant.
What I have to offer is necessary.
What I have to offer is necessary.
I am open to sharing.
I am open to sharing.
I am open to receiving.
I am open to receiving.
I give thanks for the opportunity to share.
I give thanks for the opportunity to share.
I give thanks for the opportunity to receive.
I give thanks for the opportunity to receive.
I honor my vessel.
I honor my vessel.
I am honored that Source uses my vessel.
I am honored that Source uses my vessel
to reach the many.
To reach the many.
I am excited about growth.
I am excited about growth.
I accept the challenges that come along with advancing to new levels.
I accept the challenges that come along to advancing to new levels.
I am fully equipped to handle the unexpected with grace.
I am fully equipped to handle the unexpected with grace.
I am supported through my challenges.
I am supported through my challenges.
I am supportive with the challenges of others.
I am supportive with the challenges of others.
I am bold.
I am bold.
I am fearless.
I am fearless.
I am encouraged.
I am encouraged.
I am a beacon of light.
I am a beacon of light.
I shine brightly.
I shine brightly.
I illuminate the paths of others.
I illuminate the paths of others.
This is my time.
This is my time.
Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Ashe. I did reach out to you. I've been following you for a while now on Instagram. Met you through the wonderful graces of Derek Grace. And that whole, post-Trump, that whole wonderful tribe. This is something I've been wanting to get into for myself and for my daughter.
Okay.
And the way you do it, being a one-man crew, really captivates me.
Thank you.
So I am wanting to know, I haven't caught all of your episodes. I am catching up.
Okay.
They are, the ones I've caught so far seem to be the ones I needed to hear.
That's excellent. That's excellent. One time for an on-time message.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I can't imagine, and forgive me if you've already talked about these things.
Okay.
I can't imagine the amount of effort being a one-man crew. Were you always a one-man crew?
No. So the history of me doing this podcast dates all the way back to my second album. So for those of you who don't know, I also do spoken word. I also act. So there's a lot of performance, which is why sometimes you'll see me do myself as different roles in the episode. So if you haven't seen one of the episodes where I'm the producer and the editor, that's partially because I enjoy acting. It's partially because comedy is one of the ways that I cope. That's one of my coping mechanisms. So I can laugh at some of the things. And I'm also very highly aware of some of the feedback that people have and some of the slick things that people say. So you're not hurting my feelings. I know you're saying it. It's okay. I'm going to say it too. So let's put it out there. It's out there. Okay. And we're moving forward. But in 2014, I released my second album, and my producer at the time said to me, because the format was a group therapy session, and so all of the segues in between each poem was a segment of that group therapy session. And he was like, you need to be doing a podcast. I didn't know what a podcast was. And all I knew was that I didn't have any Apple products. So how am I supposed to do a podcast if I don't have an iPod? Like, that's what my thinking was. And so over the years, it was something that lived in the back of my mind, but it wasn't something that I acted on because it wasn't something that I wanted to do by myself. It was never something I wanted to do by myself, and I can't stress that enough. I see that so many podcasts are super successful because of the dynamic of the interaction. Even for somebody who's hosting by themselves, usually they have a guest. So the dynamic of that interaction and the back and forth, people enjoy that. People don't always enjoy one person speaking because sometimes they feel like they're being spoken at instead of an engagement since they can't talk back. So 2001, one of my friends and I finally went forward with the podcast that we started creating in 2020, but the pandemic shut that down. And so he was flying into town just about every week so that we could shoot and record. There were a lot of things that transpired in 2020 that made the year a little bit more challenging than he was prepared for. And so when 2021 came in, he kind of went into a very deep depression. And so there was an episode. We had 7 pre-recorded episodes that were ready. And then when it was time for episode 8 to go up, there was no episode 8. And I had reached out to him and he wasn't reaching back. And so I had 2 choices. Choice number 1 was to keep it going on my own. Choice number 2 was to let it drop where it was. And because from a business perspective, I had already been building this up. I had already been doing the work with promoting it on my page, creating this page, creating that page, doing things that I really didn't. Some of it I knew how to do, some of it I didn't know how to do, but I had already started investing my brand into it. I wasn't just going to let it drop right there. So I took the initiative and I kept it going. And then at the end of the season, when I ended the season officially, at that point, I had made a decision that, yes, I was going to take the step and I was going to step out and do this as a one-person show because I was already doing passion PSAs on Instagram. And at the time, you had a limit of 10 minutes. So if I had something that was 11 minutes, I then had to upload it through IGTV. IGTV no longer exists because that was supposed to be something that was something similar to YouTube. So they wanted to create that kind of platform where people could come and watch even longer form content. It didn't take off the way they wanted it to, so they eliminated it. But you can still post long form content. The issue with long form content is that you have to have the audience space for long form content. Some people are only going to take 30 seconds. They have conditioned themselves. A lot of us give everybody else credit for the conditioning that we've received, but we're conditioning ourselves, right? So we're opting into certain stimuli, and because this is what we've opted into now, that's the kind of stimulus we need. And if we can't get that stimulus, then we start to get antsy. So some people are not receptive to a longer form content, especially, like I said, when it's only one person doing it. Even if I have a producer in the background who may not be on camera and who might not even be mic'd, but you can hear them talking in the background, there's still another dynamic there that people are very receptive to. But I don't always have that. Initially, when I started doing this particular podcast, I was a one-person operation, but I had a producer for the first few episodes. And then budget-wise, there were some issues that I could not go forward. So I just had to leave that alone and continue on my own and say, well, you know what, I'm going to try. And it's going to be what it's going to be. Either they're going to like it or they're going to not watch it. But one of my biggest reminders to myself whenever I start to get discouraged, because discouragement is a real thing, especially in this process, 1/8 billionth. And so what I mean by that is that you are 1/8 billionth and I am 1/8 billionth. And if we were just looking at 1/100th, 1 in 100 seems very, 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 very small. So 1 in 8 billion is even tinier. So you don't like what I'm doing and you're 1/8 billionth of the world. These 7,500 people don't like what I'm doing, and there's still 7,500 out of 8 billion. We're not talking about a million. We're talking about 7,500 out of 8 billion. So I can't focus on my energy on that 7,500 that don't like it, because I don't know what the number is, 7,501 to 8 billion, but I know it's bigger than that 7,500. And even beyond that, sometimes what we're doing is not meant to touch or to catapult everyone. What we're doing might only be to serve one or two people, but it could be the catalyst in that one or two people's lives that changes the world. So if I stop doing this, and by me stopping doing this, you don't get your inspiration, but me inspiring you was supposed to get you started. Now you getting started. Not only have you created your own podcast, you've created an entire network. So you're giving Oprah competition because you have your own network on television. But all of that is predicated on me inspiring you. If I quit, we got a problem. Mm-hmm. So, we can't always be concerned with who don't like it, who's not, and who's not supporting it. We got to just push forward and trust that somebody is benefiting from it. And know that if you're more concerned with how everybody else is benefiting from it, that might be because you weren't really satisfied with the quality of the work that you were putting out in the first place.
Okay, you touched on a lot of things that I was going to ask, so thank you for that. I'd like to get into the budget and what does actually producing when it comes to a podcast actually mean. I'm assuming this is also involving the editing, putting snippets together. What else goes into that?
So it depends. If you're a one-person operation, then it includes all of that. If you have a budget, but your budget is small, you can use a site like Fiverr, and you'll probably be able to piece things together, right? So you might be able to find your producer. I haven't looked for a producer on Fiverr. You would definitely be able to find an editor. If you are really particular about how you want your episodes edited, you might want to do your own edits, but then you might have somebody do your captioning. So on the gram, when you see me post snippets of, each episode, I do all of that. I pick and choose which clips I'm going to use. If there's sometimes clips that I splice together, there are other times where in order to make it fit into the 60 seconds, I have to take out a second here and a second here and a second here. So all of that is sometimes the budget. What we don't consider in the budget is the time, because time is very valuable and very expensive. Time is going to keep moving regardless. So this 60-second clip, it only took you 60 seconds to watch it, but it might have taken me a half an hour to create it. Doing the captioning, depending on the platform you're using, if you're using TikTok has closed captions. So you might not have it doing the bigger captions versus me. The way I set mine up, I might have an announcement at the top. So this way, if you found this by looking at my page, every thumbnail that you see when it's a clip has something at the top to capture your attention and maybe a quote on the bottom. So there's something to draw you in. And then when you're looking at it, I may have so for affirmations will be at the top, and I may have the affirmation right underneath it, or I'll have it at the bottom of the video. And then somewhere on the video, I'll also have the listing. But it all depends on what appeals to you and also what appeals to your audience. And it depends on when I say your audience, who are you trying to appeal to? Are you trying to appeal to everybody, or are you only trying to appeal to the select people that you know are actively following you? Because those people, some of them, they're going to rock with you if you don't have captions, if you just put up the jankiest little clip, if you just put up a waveform. And if you're not familiar with what a waveform is, it's the lines that you see when people are talking. That's your waveform. Mm-hmm. So okay. Some people are satisfied with just that and captions. Some people are not, because they need to see a face. So it all depends on your audience and how you're trying to appeal to them. But like I said, if your budget is small, you can use a site like Fiverr. If you have some friends who are skilled and adept, you might be able to enlist their services. If you are in control of everything from the from the business side to the creator side, like the artist side, if you're applying for loans, you can use loan money. If you're applying for grants, you can use grant money to get you the money to be able to afford maybe a more expensive thing. It's not impossible to do it yourself. It's just very time consuming if you have other things you already have to do.
Okay. So equipment wise, since we're on the topic of budget, if you don't mind.
I don't.
When you started off, have you upgraded your equipment since starting off, or are you still using the same equipment? And how much equipment is involved in the price?
So when I was doing the first pod, we were using Anchor, and I didn't have the only equipment I actually had. I had gotten a Yeti microphone, and what else did I get? I had gotten a Yeti as a birthday gift or a Christmas gift, something, one of the two. And with Anchor, the benefit to that was that I could record straight to the platform. So before, we were recording at a location, and at that location, all the equipment was there. And then when I didn't have contact with my partner, I had to take measures into my own hands, but I had a microphone. So since I had a microphone in the app, I pretty much had everything that I needed. So I was able to record that way. When I decided to go this route and I was working with the producer, he had a camera. When we were no longer working together, I didn't have a camera, but my ghost was like, and so when I say my ghost, I'm talking about my ghost producer. One of my friends he's my advisor. So he's always in the background like, okay, well, you have this, you can use this, you can use that. So what's up, Ghost? So Ghost was like, you have an iPad. I'm fairly certain iPad can shoot in 4K, but even if it can't, like, that's not the end of the world. You have an iPad, so you basically already have what you need. You have an iPad, you have a microphone, and I had other podcast equipment. So this microphone that you see is a part of a PodTrack 8. The PodTrack 8 Zoom podcast recording interface, right? So that comes with, well, doesn't come with, but I have that, and I had 2 microphones. It came with the necessary cords, and then there's a few other cords that I already had. So if you have that, you pretty much have everything you need. So I set my iPad up, and then if you notice in the first 4 episodes of season 1, there were 2 episodes that were scripted, and there was a lot of this, and that's because everything was written on my iPad, but I didn't have a teleprompter that I could use so that I could read it. So when I was going to my next episodes, not episode 5, but episode 6 and beyond, I built a teleprompter. It doesn't take a lot of money. If you have a piece of cardboard and a picture frame from Dollar Tree, some glue and some black paint, or if you have little like black material laying around and some more glue, some like a glue gun, you have everything you need to build your own teleprompter. So the iPad was the most expensive item in that. And that's what I use for everything. It's what I use to edit. It's what I use. And it's just a matter of the apps that you download. A lot of the apps that you're downloading are free. So you're not going to incur any fee for that, incur any charge for that. And then it's just, again, it goes back to the time. If you don't already know how to use those apps, you might need to be able to dedicate time to watching YouTube videos on how to use those apps, how to go through each and every section of it, or how to do just this one thing. And just this one thing might require you to use 4 or 5 different apps. I use iMovie because that's the easiest with my iPad. When I was doing edits when I do edits on my Android, because I have an Android phone, when I do edits from my Android, I use UCut. UCut is my friend. I find it a lot easier to navigate. Prior to doing UCut, I was using Power Director, and I still use Power Director. Power Director can be used on either platform, where UCut is not available on the iOS platform. It's only available on Android. So that's why I use iMovie. So it's just that, and learning, how to maneuver. Some things take a little bit longer, but it all works out. But the expense, if we're talking about a dollar amount, really depends on how much money you spent on your iPad. And if you're not using your iPad, let's say if you have a laptop, as long as you have a laptop with a webcam, you have a camera, So, microphones aren't necessarily that expensive. It all depends on the quality of the microphone. If you're going to be doing a podcast, I recommend getting something that's a broadcast microphone specifically.
I'm writing as you're talking.
I see. And that's fine. I'm open to sharing. We affirm that.
Okay. How long, twofold question. How long did it take for you to really, and I'm certain you're still evolving within, but how long do you think it actually took to really feel comfortable within this? And then what was the one thing you kind of felt, okay, like you really had to put effort into getting, if that makes sense?
All right. So expound on that a little bit. When did I really feel comfortable in what, like being in front of a camera?
The whole kit and caboodle. So working with the equipment, actually, not so much actually doing the podcast, but just working with the equipment, learning how to make it all go, especially when you are now a one-man team. And then was there one thing out of all of that you kind of got stuck with and really had to dedicate a lot of time into getting under your belt?
So I've always been comfortable in terms of, once I entered into the podcast space, I've always been comfortable in terms of being in front of the camera or being in front of the mic. Again, I'm a spoken word artist, and I started doing spoken word in 2009. The first time I ever did an open mic, I was a feature. I had never even attended an open mic before. So I went from never going to an event to not only attending the event, but being the featured artist. So I had to adjust quick, and stage fright has always been present, but I thugged my way through that. And then the more comfortable I became, and a lot of the times because I was in spaces where there were loyal fans, right? So people are already familiar with me in the audience. It gave me room to flub, because like if I forgot the lines in the poem, I'm like, well, I thought you said this was your favorite poem. What's the next line? Because I don't remember. You know what I'm saying? And I would just have fun with my audience. So to be in front of a camera where it's just me, and if I look at the screen, then I see myself, that's light. To be, even with the equipment, where it required adjusting and it required a learning curve, was all of the engineering. So even using the platform was fine when I was using Anchor, but then there was an episode. It was the check-in episode. That episode we recorded, I think we recorded either an hour and a half or 2 hours, and there was a lot of dead air. And so when you're engineering, there are different things that you're looking for. There's the visual aspect of it. There's the audio aspect of it. The breathing, the plosives. For those who don't know what plosives are, that's your all of those noises. They sound terrible in the microphone, especially if you have high quality headphones on. When the cord touches the microphone stand, stays on top of me. You hit the microphone stand. Like, okay, leave me alone. I didn't hit the microphone stand. Swallowing. When you see me, if you ever see me like doing something like this in any of the episodes, it's because I don't want the microphone to pick me up swallowing, because you hear it. This is not an ASMR recording. So I don't necessarily want you to hear all of this saliva that's accumulated in my mouth. So those are real things to consider, and they're things that you may not have considered before you had to do the editing yourself. And so I had to edit a lot of that dead air, a lot of the ums and the you knows, all of the filler words, because those are things that you become mindful of, because you start to hear them and it's like, oh my God, you would think that my vocabulary was limited the way I couldn't find the words that I was looking for. So an hour and a half episode can easily turn into 45 minutes once you get all of those ums and plosives and breathing and everything else. Once you get all of that out, it's all condensed to this much shorter thing, but I couldn't get it to save. So I had to re-edit, and every time I edited the episode, it wouldn't save. So then I'm scrambling. So we're talking about an episode that was supposed to go up this week. It didn't go up till 3 weeks later. So what I finally had to do was to export the audio from Anchor to Audacity, which I didn't know how to use, and kind of learn how to use it on the fly. What I had learned from using Anchor and doing my editing in Anchor, I was able to apply that, the most crude, basic skills I had, I was able to apply that in Audacity, do my edits there, and then re-upload it back to Anchor, but Anchor will only take a certain size. So then I had to chop it in half. And then, so it was an adventure to make this whole thing come together. So that was the biggest learning curve, was that part, and how time consuming it was. So when I had a partner, we had the responsibilities divided. He was doing that side of the work, and then I was doing the promotional side of the work. So I was creating clips. There were clips that he created. I created the clips. I was putting them up on his page, my personal page. So I didn't have to be responsible for that. So I didn't know all what was going into that until it all fell in my lap at one time. I was able, to navigate my way through it when the producer that I was working with took on the Passion PSA podcast. All of that was supposed to be in the package, right? The editing, the sound, the this, the that, all of that was supposed to be a part of the package. When I brought everything back in-house, I'm right back where I started, but now I have another component because now it's visual. So now it's not just the audio and the plosives, etc. Now I have to make sure that the set looks a certain way, and continuity, the set has to look the same in every episode. And if it's not going to look the same, then there needs to be some indicator as to why. So maybe it's because I'm sitting someplace different. And even in the shot, a continuous shot, if you have to stop, let's say you're using a teleprompter, you might be reading and it doesn't read well and you need to scroll back. So now I don't remember how I was sitting because I wasn't paying attention to that. So if I want this to look seamless when I'm editing it, I have to remember that. That's that continuity. So all of those things that you're not thinking about as a consumer, as a viewer, all of those things become the things that you learn about as you grow.
Okay. When it comes to topics, is it better to stay on topic? Now, so when I say that, I mean, if you're talking sports, do you always stay sports? If you're talking relationships, do you always stay relationships? Or if you're talking decorating, do you always stay decorating? Do you feel like you would lose your audience if you were kind of fluctuating between all these subjects? Or I find that when you're listening to a lot of podcasts, they are topic specific. Is that the way it should be? Or do you feel you are able to, or you can go between subjects?
With a podcast like this one, because the title is a public service announcement, and I introduce every episode, and especially in season 2, I introduce every episode by letting people know that this is a podcast that I'm doing based on things that I've observed or things that I've thought about, right? That wiggle room is there for me. So these are my observations, but really it's a self-help podcast. Because self-help is not limited to one area, you have to correct things in all different areas. It gives me a little bit more room. If I were doing a sports podcast, then I could talk about things sports related. But if I want to start talking about knitting on a sports podcast, then I need to be talking about knitting the basketball net or talking about knitted jerseys. But for me to just be like, yeah, I'm knitting, somebody who tuned in specifically to hear my opinion on this game is going to be like, sis, that what? For why you did that?
So set it up to, if you want to vary in subject, that is how it should be set up from the start.
That would be my recommendation, that you want people to be very clear exactly what it is they're looking for, especially because, so with podcasts, it's mainly supposed to be audio, right? Because we have things like YouTube, because we have things like TikTok, because we have things like Instagram, Facebook, you can have a visual component, but the primary component is supposed to be audio, not visual. So when you're being searched, right? So let's say you want to put your podcast on Apple Podcasts, people are going to be looking for things that are in a specific genre. So they're looking for self-help. They're looking for education. They're looking for sports. They're looking for knitting. They're looking for decorating. But if you're just I'm a free thinker and I just want to talk about random things, you're going to have to figure out how you classify that, because when you go to put it on these different sites, they're going to ask you. So if you pick one platform that shoots out to everybody else. So when we were doing it, we were using Anchor. Now I've moved over to Podbean, and I had my own challenges using Podbean, because in order for me to do video and audio, if I wanted to do them separately, I had to have two separate accounts. I wasn't going to do that. That wasn't something that I understood from the beginning. So then it was like, okay, some of these platforms, they don't accept visual content. But everything I've created thus far is visual. So I can't share to these platforms until I have audio only content. So then I can shoot it out to those platforms. All of those things are things that you have to consider. And it's a lot of steps, but some of those steps are one-time steps. So I will say that it is a lot to consider, but some of the steps are one-time steps. Some of it's better. If you don't have the patience and you're not really interested in learning all of it, you just want to be the talent, it's better to pay and have somebody else do it. Like, okay, here's what, this is an additional $150. Cool. I'm willing to pay the $150 as long as I don't have to deal with trying to get this uploaded to here, uploaded to there, and uploaded to the next place. But the point is, going back to what you originally asked, you're going to have to be able to classify what genre this fits into. So if it's a everything podcast, there's no genre description that says everything or all inclusive. Mm-hmm. They'll give you lifestyle, they'll give you fashion, they'll give you entertainment, financial literacy, investing, and even those differentiations could be made, and you have to decide for yourself which one you feel is most indicative of what kind of podcast you're putting out there.
Okay. Thank you. This definitely helped. I'm just really looking forward to just taking the time to really learn all this and apply it and make the mistakes. I know when I had did a little video, and I'm trying to get my camera to get the right position to catch the sunlight, and the traffic is going past, and I'm like, okay, wait, stop. Can you go back? Play this. Can you hear this? Okay, wait. So that's what really made me go, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I mean, and it was funny, and the frustration was there, and I'm ready. The phone dropped out the window. I don't know how many times in the snow, and I'm like, and she does, no. And the video was crappy, but I had fun. I did have fun. At the end of the day, it was fun. And like I said, it really allowed me to appreciate what you do, what you put out for us, for me, definitely all the more. So thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. It is a lot of work. More of that is because my time has to be divided. So if you're a full-time employee and you work outside of the house, that's something that you need to consider. If you're going to use your iPad or even your iPhone, but that's something that the device that you're using is something that you have to remove from the space, keep that in mind, because the minute you move it from your tripod, that tripod is going to do something different. And that perfect shot that you had, it is going to take you some time to get it back. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to try your patience, and it's going to work your nerves. You'll see in like episodes, at the beginning of episodes, I forget what episode it was. I think it was like episode 7 or 8. Right before I brought in the intro music, I was like, y'all want to hear a funny story? So I sat down and I recorded this episode, and then I went to play it back so I could review it, and I didn't record this episode. So now I have to record this episode. I went through the entire episode and never hit the record button. There have been times when I have started and I'm like, for whatever reason, my eye was drawn to the side and I'm like, the trees, where are the trees? And I'm halfway through the episode. So now I got to get up and bring the rest of the set over because I have no trees. They're part of the set. So all of those things, little things. But when you're first starting out, because the first episode of this season was consistency. When you first start out, know that there's a possibility for a lot of fumbles, and that if you've never done it before and your audience knows that you've never done it before, a lot of them will give you a little bit more grace than you think that they will. Mm-hmm. If you are a perfectionist, because I am a perfectionist, give yourself grace. Stop yourself when you start to chastise yourself, or you start to beat yourself up, or you start to become angry. Know when it's time to say, let me work on something else. Let me work on something else, because if I continue to work on this, I'm either going to break it or I'm going to give up. And that does not mean that you'll become inconsistent, but you have to know that there is a point where you have to take your hands off of it, because your energy is not right and everything is going to continue to go wrong, because that's where your energy is. Your energy is in the wrong space, so everything's going to follow your energy. Your audience, you may be one of those people that has an immediate audience and they're with you every day and they don't require any reminders. You may have an audience that loves what you do and they're going to be like, how come you haven't put anything out? And you're going to be like, I'm on episode 75. What was the last episode you saw? Well, no, I haven't seen anything after episode 5.
Wow.
Yeah. Why? But you didn't send me anything. But so did YouTube, did it stop working? Because it's on YouTube. All you have to do is go to YouTube.
Right.
Know those things. Know that the people that you think have their notifications on, don't. The people you think are subscribed are not. The people who you think are going to watch because they bang with you heavily, they're not. Some of them are not because they're not interested. And don't let that discourage you, because that was a big one for me. It's very discouraging when the people around you want to put a battery in your back to do something that they're not going to support. Yeah, you should do a podcast. Oh my God, you will be so good at it. Then you're like, oh, I did the podcast. Congratulations. Did you watch it? No, I'm just so busy. I just have a lot of work to do. I just have so much. I know, because you're always on Instagram, and that's probably why you can't watch. No, I watched your podcast on Instagram. You absolutely do not, because my podcast is not 60 seconds. Right. So you watch clips on Instagram. You do not watch the entire podcast. And that's a real thing. Keep all of that in mind, or know all of that up front, so it doesn't catch you off guard on the back end. Is your Instagram page already a business page?
No, it's not.
Convert it to a business page.
Okay.
Doesn't require money. Convert it to a business page. This way you can start looking at your analytics. Analytics tell you a lot of things that as a standard page, you just don't know, right?
Okay.
Likes and views are very, very different things. And a lot of us don't necessarily recognize the reach, right? So you may have reached X amount of accounts. Your post may have been shared X amount of times. Your post may have been bookmarked X amount of times. All of those analytics are available to you. Click-through rates are available to you. So when you're setting up your YouTube, you want to look at your analytics on that as well. Your click-through rates, look and see about how much of the episode people are watching. That doesn't mean that you shorten your episode. Just because people are not necessarily watching the whole thing, I might not watch the whole thing today because I might not have time. But I'm that person. If I'm going to watch your podcast, I'm going to watch the whole thing. So I might not look at the whole thing today. I might skip over some things, but then the next time I sit down to intentionally and actively watch it, I'm going to watch it all the way through. But you want to see where your peaks are, where you see you're getting the highest viewing, where you're not. make use of your long form and your short form content. So on Instagram, short form is your reels. On TikTok is mainly short form content. YouTube now has YouTube Shorts, so you can use that to your benefit as well. And YouTube is a long form content platform. So, but remember, priority over everything, that your podcast is an audio event, audio occurrence. The word it just refuses to come to me, but you know what I'm talking about. What it is that you're putting out is primarily audio. It's not primarily video. So if you don't have a camera, you do not have to run out and spend $3,000 on a camera. The people that's going to be like, oh my God, you know what would make it so much better? Is if you had video, because I just want to see you. They're not going to watch it. Mm-hmm. They're going to tell you to go out and spend $3,000 on a camera, right? Because that's what they're telling you when they're telling you that you should have a video platform. They're going to tell you, yes, have video. You need video. So you're going to go out and spend all this money on a camera for something that they're not going to watch. And then they're going to tell you they're too busy to watch. Mm-hmm. And they're going to tell you they didn't have time to listen to it, but every time they get in their car, they turn the radio on.
Right.
Through their phone. So that means that you could have listened to this because it was only 20 minutes. Right. And the drive was an hour. But it's not for us to police anybody's time. Be aware of these things and don't let any of that thwart you. If you know it up front, it's easier not to be discouraged by it.
Right.
There is an audience for everything under the sun. For the strangest, for the weirdest, for whatever you feel is like not of God, there is an audience for it. For whatever you feel is of God, there is an audience for it. So there is an audience, and it may take time. You might have to invest more money into ads. I wouldn't even suggest that you do that up front. I would say get your feet all the way wet, at least with a season. You don't have to do a season like a television show. I chose to do that because there's so many different things that I want to put out. And in order for me to be able to put different things out, I need to not have to be focused on putting this out for a while so that I can focus on putting this out. So let me create the content for the pod and have the pod stuff ready, done, go. While every week the pod is up, the pod is going out, I'm working on the Daniel Fast cooking show. So now at the end of the season, the Daniel Fast videos will be going up. So the content will still be there, and the subscribers to my YouTube will have that content available. With you have, I don't know if you are okay with me sharing your Instagram handle. Are you okay with me sharing your Instagram handle? My Heart Bleeds Purple Fires. You have that. If that's your hub page, then you can put everything on that page. But if you're doing the Shangri-La podcast, then have a Shangri-La podcast page. So all that you post on that page is related to your podcast. Even if you do reels and you use like audio overdubs and you're doing like voiceovers or whatever, still only content that is specific to your podcast goes on that page. Your hub page is for everything else. So if you act, if you sew, if you knit, if you play basketball, if you do hair, you cook, you can say, okay, I'm reposting this from this page over here. I'm reposting this from this page. Check out this that I'm doing. Check out that I'm doing. Check out this. My They Call Me Passion page is my hub page. Anybody who's ever come in contact with me knows of that page. If you are specifically interested in the podcast, there's the Passion PSA podcast page. Mm-hmm. So if you want to specifically talk to me only about the podcast, you can absolutely reach me there. Can you reach me at They Call Me Passion? Sure. But that's a page for anything. So if I decide I want to put up a skit, I act. I was acting long before I was doing podcasting. When I do Song to Yourself Saturday, I was on the self-correction, self-love journey long before I started podcasting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that goes up every Saturday on my They Call Me Passion page, but I'm not going to put Song to Yourself Saturday on my Passion PSA podcast page. You feel me? There's no limit to how many gram accounts that you can have. Will everybody follow you to every account? No, they won't. So this is why you want to repost from those accounts to this account. But let's say you post primarily for your podcast on your podcast page and you post 100 posts there. You don't have to put all 100 posts on your hub page. You could put 2 or 3 posts. If they're going to go, they're going to go. As long as you either do it as a paid partnership with your other page. If you do it as a collaborative, like I know you've probably seen now some people have where it's both of their names at the top instead of just that particular person, because they're doing it as a collaboration. So it will reflect on both pages. So then that, if you're doing something for your podcast and you put it on your podcast page and you did it in collaboration with your My Heart Bleeds Purple Fires page, now it'll reflect on both pages without you having to do the work. Another update that's available, and it was doing it from my iPad and then it stopped, but it's doing it from my Android. When you're posting it, if you have all of your accounts set up on that device, then it'll give you the option when you're posting on one to post to multiple at the same time. So if you have 4 different pages and you want to post this one post on all 4 different pages, then you just turn all 4 on. And when it creates the post, it'll tell you 1 of 4 was posted, 2 of 4 was posted until all 4 are posted. So that's something else that you can use as a tool to make it easier for yourself. Because TikTok gives you the opportunity to share direct to Instagram. If you don't have the patience or the time to do your own captions, use TikTok, because TikTok does closed captions and they nail it pretty well, especially if you're well-spoken. So you shouldn't have too many issues with coming up with the captions or making corrections to your captions. So instead of you having to create the caption, it would just be like maybe to put in your punctuation to capitalize or change a word here and there and then share it to Instagram. Now, the last post that I shared from TikTok to Instagram, I don't think the whole post shared, and I didn't anticipate that. So I have to do a little bit more research as to like what step I missed. But you can do that if you're using something like UCut. Right? I don't know if you have an Android phone, but let's say you have an Android phone and you're using UCut to do your editing, you can do all of your captions right there in UCut. So now the video is on your Android device. You can upload it to whatever site you want to, so long as you meet the time specs. So if it's only 60 seconds, you'll be able to put it on any place that allows short form content that's up to 60 seconds. And if it's over that, then you just have to ensure that you hit your max. With Instagram, you can go and go and go and go. With TikTok, I think it's 3 minutes is the max right now. So it will have to be 3 minutes or less. So just make sure that you have your content for each. And then that'll also make it easier for you. Now, in terms of what it is, so the podcast that you're building, is it a mother-daughter podcast, or is it that you want to support your daughter in her podcast, or she wants to help you with what you want to do with your podcast?
It's a mixture. Okay. I want to do my own.
Okay.
I would like to do something with her mother-daughter.
Okay.
I don't see that a lot, especially within our community. Just about, life growing up, whatever. And then assist her with her reaching out as well.
Okay.
Because she has a bigger community, I think she would probably kind of take off a little more. So it's a mixture. There's quite a few things going on here. Okay. I can't seem to, nail anything down. I'm working on that.
Okay. You told me what she's interested in, but you haven't told me what you're interested in. So what are you interested in?
How much time do we have?
Okay, y'all. So that was part 1. What ends up happening in part 2 is that the dynamic shifts, and instead of it being me being interviewed, it's more of her being interviewed and some coaching. So stick around for part 2. You'll see that next week. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. All of the information was given to you at the top of the episode. I think that's about it. Go forth, be great, be filled with bliss, be armed and empowered with knowledge. Ask the questions. The answers are out there. Do your research. That information is also out there. In all things, be passionate. I'll see you next week. Later.